All right, so get this, listeners. We're diving into this legal case from the Philippines.
Okay.
GR now, 251502.
Okay.
And it's about misconduct in a fertilizer purchase.
Sounds riveting.
Yeah, you might be thinking, fertilizer? Really? But trust me, this one's got twists and turns.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
going to take us through, like, bureaucracy and justice and, yeah, even fertilizer.
Yeah.
So get ready for a wild ride.
Yeah, what's really fascinating about this case is that, I mean, we're talking about a simple purchase, right?
Yeah.
But it took over a decade to resolve.
Over a decade for fertilizer.
I know, right?
You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Okay, so who are the players in this legal drama?
So we've got provincial officials.
Okay.
We've got a program to help farmers in Southern Leyte and a company called PHILPHOS.
Yeah.
They all get caught up in this whole fertilizer fiasco.
PHILPHOS.
Yeah.
Right.
So picture this. Philippines, 2013. The Department of Agriculture, they want to help farmers, right? They want to get fertilizer into their hands.
Sounds like a good goal.
Noble goal.
So how'd they do it? Did they just, like, hand it out on the streets?
Not quite. So the Department of Agriculture,
Okay.
they made an agreement, a memorandum of agreement with the provincial government. They set aside, get this, 5 million pesos specifically for fertilizer.
5 million pesos.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of fertilizer. So what happened? Did they, like, go on fertilizer.com and find the cheapest deal?
Well, that's where things get a little interesting. So PHILPHOS, Philippine Phosphate Fertilizer Corporation.
Okay.
They get a contract to supply over 4,000 bags of fertilizer.
All right.
And the total comes out to 3,250,000 pesos.
Okay, so something's got to go wrong. Right? What is it? Did the fertilizer explode?
Well, not quite that dramatic, but pretty close. So the Commission on Audit, the COA,
Yeah.
they're kind of like the financial watchdogs.
I see, yeah.
They started investigating this whole deal.
Yeah.
And guess what? They found some serious irregularities.
Yeah. Okay, now we're talking. What'd they find? Was the fertilizer, like, made of gold or something?
Not gold, but maybe some shady business practices.
Uh-oh.
So the COA found out that the provincial government didn't even do competitive bidding.
They didn't what?
No competitive bidding.
So they just went straight to PHILPHOS
Basically,
without even checking for a better price?
Yeah, no shopping around.
Wow. Okay, so they might have overpaid for this fertilizer, and with 5 million pesos on the line, that's a big deal, right?
Huge deal.
Okay.
And it gets even better. Or worse, I guess.
Oh, no.
They also found a bunch of missing documentation. It was like a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Oh, man.
They couldn't track the money. They couldn't track where the fertilizer went.
Okay, so we've gone from a fertilizer purchase to a fertilizer fiasco.
Yeah.
So who are these provincial officials in charge of this whole thing?
So those are our petitioners, right? They're the ones who are supposed to oversee everything.
Right, right.
Now, they claim they're innocent. They said they followed all the rules.
They were just trying to get that fertilizer to the farmers quickly?
We were just trying to help, right? Classic.
Exactly.
So I bet the COA wasn't buying it. What kind of evidence did they have against these officials?
Well, they had receipts. Remember that whole no competitive bidding thing?
Yeah.
That was a major red flag for the COA. They couldn't find any proof that the government even tried to get a good deal for the taxpayers.
So they could have overpaid.
Exactly. Big no-no when you're dealing with public funds.
Yeah, no kidding. So we've got questionable contracts, missing documents, and maybe millions of pesos wasted. What happens next? Do they get, like, a slap on the wrist?
Not even close. This is where it gets really interesting. We're about to dive deep into the Philippine legal system. Get ready. This case takes a decade-long detour.
A decade? You're serious? Okay, what happened?
So first up, the Office of the Ombudsman, the OMB.
Okay,
They look at the COA's findings and they're not happy.
I bet.
They decided that those provincial officials were guilty of misconduct. Okay, so the COA wins round one. Case closed, right?
Not so fast. This is just the beginning.
Oh, boy.
The officials, they fight back. They appeal to the Court of Appeals, hoping for a different outcome.
Okay, so it's getting good. What did the Court of Appeals say?
They sided with the OMB.
Really?
Yeah. They upheld the misconduct charges and even agreed to remove the officials from their jobs.
Wow, talk about adding insult to injury. But wait, you said this case went on for a decade, so there's got to be more, right?
Oh, yeah, this is where the Supreme Court of the Philippines comes in.
Okay.
They decided to hear the case, and they focused on two main questions. One, was there an unreasonable delay in resolving this?
Okay.
And two, were the officials denied a speedy trial?
Wait a minute, speedy trial. I thought that was for, like, criminal cases.
Right.
You know, when someone's in jail waiting for their day in court.
Yeah.
These were government officials accused of misconduct, right?
Exactly. And that's what makes this case so interesting. The Supreme Court had to figure out if that right to a speedy trial, does it apply to administrative cases like this one?
So it's more than just fertilizer. It's about bigger issues.
Much bigger.
Government accountability.
Absolutely.
Basic rights.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hooked. What happened next?
Well, that's a story for part 2.
All right, stay tuned. So the Supreme Court is looking at this whole fertilizer mess. But that speedy trial thing, I thought that was for, like, someone in jail, right?
Yeah, usually it is. But in this case, those officials weren't locked up while all this was happening.
Right.
But the Supreme Court basically said the right to a speedy resolution applies no matter what kind of case it is.
So even for, like, administrative stuff, like this fertilizer deal?
Exactly. Justice delayed is justice denied, even for fertilizer.
Interesting. Makes you wonder, how many other cases are just stuck, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Just waiting while people's lives are on hold?
It happens.
Doesn't really make you feel confident in the system, does it?
Not really. I think that's why the Supreme Court decision is so important.
Yeah.
It's like a message to the government saying, hey, you can't just drag things out forever.
Okay, so let's get into what the Supreme Court actually said. They didn't just say, this took too long, right? There had to be reasons.
Right. They focus on this idea of inordinate delay. That basically means the delay was unreasonable, excessive.
Inordinate delay. Okay.
Yeah.
How do they even measure that? Is there like a time limit?
Not a specific time limit, but the length of the delay is a big factor, of course. We're talking over 10 years here.
10 years. That's longer than it takes to build a skyscraper.
I know, right? And it wasn't like this case was super complicated. The Supreme Court even said it didn't have any complex legal or factual issues.
So what was the holdup? Did they lose the paperwork or something?
Well, get this, the OMB, the Office of the Ombudsman,
yeah.
they didn't really give a good reason for why it took so long.
Really?
Yeah.
So they were just, like, dragging their feet?
Seems like it. The Supreme Court wasn't happy about that lack of urgency.
I bet that was rough on those officials, even if they didn't go to jail.
Oh, yeah, totally. Just having that hanging over your head for years.
Your reputation, your career.
Everything's on hold.
And even if you're cleared in the end,
Yep.
that weight must be so stressful.
Absolutely. And that's another thing the Supreme Court considered prejudice. Did that delay actually harm the officials?
So prejudice isn't just, like, discrimination. It's about any negative impact from the delay, right?
Right. And the court found that those officials were definitely harmed by this ridiculous delay.
Yeah, just imagine living under suspicion for 10 years. It's got to be awful.
It would be. The Supreme Court recognized that.
So they weren't just looking at the law. They were thinking about the human impact of all this.
Exactly. And that's what's so powerful about this case. The right to a speedy trial. It's not just some legal idea. It's about protecting real people from real harm.
And not just in criminal cases either.
Nope. The Supreme Court made that clear. This right applies to administrative cases, too.
This feels like a big win for, like, fairness in government, right?
For sure. And it raises some questions about how things could be done better, not just in the Philippines, but maybe even in other countries.
Okay, like what? What could they do differently?
Well, they could try to make the whole process faster, more efficient, set clearer deadlines, streamline procedures, that kind of thing.
So cases don't get stuck for years and years.
Exactly, because justice delayed is justice denied.
Right, right. And then there's that whole issue of prejudice. How do you even measure that? What counts as harm?
It's a tough question. How do you put a value on a damaged reputation? But it's something that courts, lawmakers, they need to figure out.
It's a tough one.
It is. It's about finding a balance between accountability and making sure the system works.
A delicate balance.
It is. This case reminds us that the law, it's not just about textbooks and courtrooms.
No.
It's about real people's lives.
It's about making sure the fertilizer actually gets to the farmers.
Exactly. We've covered a lot of ground here. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last question to think about.
Oh, I love a good cliffhanger. Hit me with it.
So, think about this. What if the Supreme Court had said no?
No to the appeal.
Yeah, what if they had sided with the Ombudsman?
So those officials would have been out of a job, right?
Yeah, most likely. Their careers would be over, their reputations tarnished.
Wow. And what about the bigger picture? Would it have, like, changed how things work in the Philippines? Would other officials be afraid to make any decisions?
It's possible, right? Imagine you're a provincial official. You just want to help farmers get fertilizer.
Yeah.
But then you think, wait, what if this turns into a 10-year legal battle?
Yeah, you'd be terrified to do anything.
Exactly. You'd be so cautious nothing would ever get done.
The government would just grind to a halt.
Right. So in a way, this decision, it wasn't just about those officials.
I see.
It was about protecting the whole system from becoming paralyzed.
So the Supreme Court was walking a tightrope, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
They had to balance accountability with making sure the government could still function.
Right. It's not always easy.
This case really shows how complicated this stuff is.
It does. Administrative law, it's not black and white like a criminal trial.
Right. There are so many factors to consider.
Exactly.
And sometimes a case about fertilizer can turn into something much bigger.
Absolutely. It can be about fundamental rights, government accountability, all kinds of things.
We started with fertilizer, and we ended up talking about the whole system.
Yeah, it's all
It
connected.
just goes to show you never know where these deep dives will take us.
That's the fun part. But for now, we've got to wrap things up.
I know. But this conversation, it's got me thinking. There's so much more to explore.
Right. That's what we want. Keep digging, learn more about the Philippine legal system, and keep asking those tough questions.
All right, listeners. That's all the fertilizer we can handle for one day.
I think we all need a break after that one.
But seriously, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a wild ride.
We went from bags of fertilizer to the Supreme Court.
Only on this show.
Until next time, keep those brains working and keep diving deep into those fascinating legal cases.
See you next time.